Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Android, Spotify. That's what we recommend. And on Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Also, check out Off the Floor. If you were on there, if you subscribe for $2.99 a month, you knew what this trade was going to be because we had it up there on host updates with the name and everything else well before it was reported by ESPN or others. So make sure you subscribe to Off the Floor, place for the most heat anywhere. Again, host updates, but also 10 different channels where you can, everything's organized from Twitter. There's no reason to be on Twitter anymore. You can just be here over with us for the price of less than a cup of coffee. So check it out. Again, it's Off the Floor. Link right here in the description. Also, check out Prize Picks. Use the code 5, FIVE. Put down your 5, get your 50. You know the deal. Legal in the state of Florida. Play WNBA, MLB, and more until the NBA, NHL, and NFL come back. PrizePicks.com. And now, today's episode.
Mercy. Luxurious. Heat Nation. Yeah. Mercy and Lago. Down to Biscayne.
Yikes. 5 on the floor. Ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing. You can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars. Wearing bubble frogs.
Down to Biscayne.
Kept the floor playing. Got it all band. Y'all seen the block. Stop with one hand. And Pat we trust. It's about have the guts. We're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to 5 on the Floor. The Miami Heat have made a trade. That's what you all wanted. That's what you got. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick on the 5 Reasons Sports. I got Greg Sylvander. You can find him at Greg Sylvander. We're doing this about 9:30 in the evening just because I had some previous things I had to attend to. But the trade went down roughly 6 o'clock. And if you've been listening here and subscribed to Off the Floor, we signaled you to it. The one thing that I will go back and report here, Greg, and then we'll get into the specifics and where it goes, is that I read this a little bit wrong at the beginning. And I've since done some reporting that has clarified that. We like to correct our mistakes here, but then we did sort of follow the trail and ultimately led to the right place. So I don't believe that there was really ever a chance of Duncan Robinson coming back to the Heat. Okay. And that was pretty much as this whole period started. Now, we talked about the early termination option and everything else that he could have done, but that wasn't the direction that this was going to go. There is a good relationship between the parties. And ultimately, what ended up happening was Duncan Robinson finds a really good deal out there for himself. He's going to make good money for the next 3 years, although the contract not fully guaranteed. We'll touch on that as well. But essentially, he's traded to the Detroit Pistons, who we're going to re-sign Malik Beasley, but he's in the middle of a gambling investigation. And Tim Hardaway Jr. is signed with Denver for the minimum of all things. And so they needed a shooter. Duncan Robinson played at Michigan. This started to signal Detroit over the past day or so. And we had reported on Off the Floor that it was likely that Simone Fontecchio, again, another name that I can hardly pronounce, is going the other way to the Heat. Now, there are some Heat fans are going to be upset about this because they're going to look at it and say, well, you got a lesser player, even though Fontecchio has had 2 of the best games of his life against the Miami Heat. It's just like when they signed Wayne Ellington, Greg, when Ellington used to kill them. Fontecchio had 2 huge games. He only shot 31% from 3 overall, though, last year. And I can tell you that as I understand it right now, this is kind of like the Kyle Anderson situation last year, where they got Kyle Anderson in a trade, but it wasn't entirely clear that they were going to keep him, but there were some on the coaching staff and inside the organization who liked him. And I think this is a similar deal because they could keep Fontecchio, but there's also the possibility of a wave and stretch down the road if they wanted to essentially do some other things and get out from under it. So that's where it is. And the one thing to understand here is if they had waived and stretched Duncan, which was a possibility, to my understanding, they would have been waiving and stretching more because Duncan's salary or what was left of it was more than what Fontecchio is going to earn, which essentially saves a little bit here as they go forward if that's the option that they choose. So again, there were a lot of variables to this, but the one thing I want to be clear on is I read it wrong as far as Duncan coming back. I don't think that was really ever in the cards. But we regrouped and we told you pretty much the team he was going to go to and the player that was going to come back. Greg, what's your thought on the trade overall?
Well, I think you can't you can't be too hard on yourself for thinking that Duncan Robinson could have potentially been back, because we said, like, what security net does he have that made him opt out? And obviously he understood that he had a market, and a unique market, where I think Detroit popped up specifically in need of a shooter and other shooters went elsewhere. So Detroit had to make a move there. So there was a perfect storm that I don't know he could have projected per se, but he did get the benefit of it. And so Duncan Robinson got paid. And ultimately for the Heat, this keeps them $6 million or so away from the luxury tax. So they do have wiggle room with trades. But I think, like, as we think, and we're going to do retrospective episodes on Duncan Robinson, that's not happening today. It is a little disheartening to know that the Heat didn't get better today with this trade. Like, let's just be open about that. They still have 15 players, so a full roster, and there's lots of things that can still happen, and I think things will still happen. But just with Duncan Robinson leaving, and even with Fontecchio, and I know that you said it's 50-50 whether they could even waive and stretch him and utilize that roster spot for someone else. Maybe it's Dame Lillard, which we'll have another episode about. To me, it's just a little bit hard to get to. Like, you opened this episode saying you wanted a trade, you got a trade. It's hard for me to accept it as something positive when I know that the team got worse.
And that's fair. That's fair. And we will do the episode about Duncan and everything he's meant. I think he's the second most important undrafted free agent they've ever developed behind Udonis Haslem. We'll go through that list. I think that'll be a fun list. And we'll probably play that clip of me saying to Duncan at Media Day last year, "You're still here," and him getting offended by it. Well, this time he's not still here. So now Bam stands alone as the longest tenured Heat player, and then it's Tyler, and that's it. So for everybody who says, and I know I'm going to get criticized for this, they haven't run it back for the last 6 years. We'll leave it that way. They've just run it back sometimes year to year. But they as far as it's Bam and it's Tyler, that's who's left from the bubble and from shortly after that. I don't think they got better. I agree with you. I think Duncan still has a lot left in the tank, although we did see this past year that he didn't really recover the form that he had the previous season. He had sort of a choppy last 3 years where there was the 1 year that was disappointing for him. He fell behind Strus. Then he had really a strong season until he hurt his back. And then he hurt his back. And then last year, I don't think he ever really got going. The one thing I will say about Duncan, and again, I want to save this for a future episode, he made lineups better consistently while he was in Miami. He got better as a playmaker. And he played hard, and I give him credit. He unlocked a lot of their lineups, but ultimately they want to go a different direction. And on the other side of this, I'll quickly get into why, okay? Because I'm not saying they've been listening, but you and I did a 35-minute episode on how they want to go young, and in my reporting today, that was given as a reason, okay? And it was even said to me by someone, "Well, you wanted to go young, so there you are." Now, here's what you should do. If you have a young family, it's one of my worst segues of all time, check out Real Estate Shop. Go to realestateshopfl.com, based in Fort Lauderdale or Broward County, at least. Open houses all over the place. Amanda, Javier is a huge Miami Heat fan. Again, they're family people, married couple that has this real estate agency. You can find them on the Fort Lauderdale Realtor. And so they know what your family needs. Challenging housing market in South Florida always. But if you reach out to them, they will find the best deal for your house or find the right house for you. So check them out. Honest, trustworthy. Again, they post everything they do. They don't hide anything. Realestateshopfl.com or the Fort Lauderdale Realtor. Reach out to them today and help yourself find the best deal on a new place to live. Okay, here's where they're they're headed. Okay. And I know then we're talking about a Dame episode. It's like, well, this is completely the opposite. We did a bunch of KD episodes, but if they got Dame, and again, we'll focus on this more as we go forward, that would be a not this year thing anyway, because he's not going to be
Yeah.
available, if at all.
And maybe at the vet
This
minimum.
season.
Sorry to
And
interrupt you.
exactly. So we're not talking about that, but I will say in general, and I don't think this deal changes it in terms of Fontecchio, I think, is 2 years younger than Duncan, something along those lines. So they didn't get a lot younger. But the overall, and he does have a skill set they need, because he can shoot. He just didn't shoot particularly well last year. Of course, didn't shoot as well.
He just shoots good against the Heat.
He shoots
Always.
good against the Heat, right? It's the Ellington factor. And Wayne's on the staff now, so it's kind of funny. But overall, okay, they don't want a progress stop. That's what I've been told. So a player like Duncan, who is a legacy player, who they feel they owe something to, and Spo owes something to, even though I know some got frustrated with Duncan not playing enough at times. Duncan is a player who could be a progress stopper for some of their other young players. We've said repeatedly, we don't want them to have progress stoppers. They are actively trying to move Terry Rozier. I can tell you that. They got 3 other guards that would play ahead of him in terms of Drew Smith. But of course, first Hakachonis, hopefully, and also, of course, Davion Mitchell, who they've re-signed for $12 million a year over 2 years. They're trying to move Terry, and I know that they would move Wiggins if they could. Okay, we're talking about a guy who's 30 and 31. I think Wiggins going to be 31 by the time the season starts, I believe, or right after the start of it. So this is where they're going. Okay, for fans who have wanted them to pivot and go young, I know there are other things that fans want. That is their plan. But Greg, now we will see. Does Eric Spoelstra go with that plan?
Yeah.
If Burks hasn't been re-signed yet, by the way, but if they have other veterans on the roster, ultimately, and most of these roster spots are filled, as you've talked about, until they make another trade, or if they make another trade, will they actually go with the young guys? Are we going to see Larson, Jovic, Jaquez, Hakachonis? Where are they going to get the kind of run that I think we believe they need to get as a group together to develop? I can tell you that letting go of Duncan, one of the reasons given to me and why they didn't pursue a return in a significant way was that they don't want a progress stop. So is that, at the very least, I understand the frustrations with other things. At the very least, is that encouraging? And we'll close it here and we'll do more tomorrow.
In a vacuum, if you're saying that a direction has been picked, then yes, there is encouraging signs to that. And I think that Heat fans will need to understand what expectations look like in a season where you're kind of in a gap year. Let's just say in some mythical world, Dame were to come and rehabs 1 year and comes back the next year. You'd have to understand you're in for a lean season, but you have something to look forward to. But even if not, this is the big thing that I think Ethan will have to continue to talk about, and it won't be on this episode, but we're going to get to it, is that you have to find new homes for Terry Rozier and you have to find new homes for Andrew Wiggins. And initially I was really against Wiggins being traded for expiring contracts and nothing else. And I still think you need to get an asset for Andrew Wiggins. But for me, we talk about progress stopping, then let's go all in on this and let's make sure that we get as many progress stoppers out of the way as possible. Do it obviously responsibly within, trade parameters. You don't want to attach picks to Terry Rozier. That's not what I'm saying to do. I'm just saying get creative enough to get as many progress stoppers out of the way. And for Andrew Wiggins also, because if we're thinking about picking a direction, I want everyone to also acknowledge one other thing. The Heat have cleaned up their books for subsequent off seasons also to a great degree. So for like a player like Andrew Wiggins, if they just get back expirings, that also feeds into having basically only the players you want to move forward with in your rookies, Bam, and potentially Tyler under contract. And Tyler's not even guaranteed to be under contract. So anyway, in the long term, if they're really going to lean young and they're actually going to commit to it, Ethan, I think Heat fans will actually, although there'll be growing pains and we'll probably do some episodes that frustrate us about the team, it will be probably what's best. And I think fans will come around to the idea of a young, fun group if that's the expectations that are set. If Wiggins and Rozier are starting and taking away minutes for these players, that's going to be hard to sell.
Can't happen. Can't happen. And I'll go to this. We talk about young, fun team, and I know what's gonna be thrown at me. They don't have a Dwayne Wade. I understand that. Okay. They didn't know Dwayne Wade was going to be Dwayne Wade in the first year. They got a sense of it after that first year. They knew what they had, and that's why they were like, okay, we'll give LA everything but Dwayne and bring in Shaq. But I think if you told fans they could have the kind of season that was had in 03, 04 or anything close to it, I think they would take it. I think it is the direction issue that everybody's been frustrated with. And so if they could move Rozier, Wiggins, look, this whole thing about crying over spilled milk, I understand. Not having enough assets, having to move picks to get rid of guys, it's frustrating for fans. I understand that. Some of this beyond their control, some of it in their control, some of it Rozier being the biggest thing that was in their control that was a mistake. You can't compound the mistake by taking back bad assets for Rozier, taking long-term money for Rozier. You can't do that, giving away more picks. But if you can somehow work him into a deal where Wiggins is also moved, and you just say, okay, we're starting fresh. Okay, we're going to start fresh. We got the kids, clear it all out, right? It's like you have a portfolio of stocks, right? And you got a stock that's just killing you. It's just killing. It's down 75%. At a certain point, you look at it, you're like, I just want to get it out of there. It's not going back up. Just get it out of there. Let's clear it out. Okay, whatever money we have left, let's invest it somewhere else. I feel that's where this has to go. And I think they know that. And so what I will say, I know there's frustration that they didn't get a pick for Duncan. They got a pick when they signed and traded Strus. I thought that might happen. I thought they might get at least a pick swap. They didn't get that. They got a little more financial flexibility. Okay, and they got a player who may be useful to them in a bridge situation here to give some shooting, maybe to allow things for others. I thought bring back Duncan made sense because this roster has almost no shooting, and so I thought that he could help in that regard. But I understand
That's
the
another
progress
pod.
stopping as well. That's the one Brady and Alex are going to jump in on, and I get it. We'll stay away from that one. This could be Clank City this year, but for right now, I understand why. Knowing the background of it, I understand why Duncan did what he did. He got a good deal. Congratulations to him. He's going to a place he's comfortable in. I think the Heat are comfortable with the way that it played out. And we can do the episodes about how they haven't really gotten a lot for these guys they developed. But in the case of Duncan, they got like 7 really productive years. And sometimes, you know what? That's enough. Okay. So a credit to Duncan for again what he contributed here in Miami. And we just wanted to at least get you something tonight. We'll get into more of it tomorrow as things go forward. And of course, we'll have Summer League coverage over the weekend. Thanks to our sponsors, realestateshopfl.com, Prize Picks, use the code FIVE, and subscribe to Off the Floor. We keep telling you that's where we're moving our operations. We appreciate it. It helps us continue to bring you content because we can't do this stuff for free forever, All right. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.